Dan Campbell, he took over play calling duties in Detroit. As a result, Matt, Jameson Williams immediately took off.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Dan Campbell, he took over play calling duties in Detroit. The broadcasters on this game kind of sort of pointed it out. There was a lot of this kind of smoke on Twitter as well, that Dan Campbell might be taking over play calling duties, and we certainly saw it there here in week number 10. As a result, Matt, Jameson Williams immediately took off. I mean, forget this coach speak of, okay, well, we need to get him going. I mean, you hear that all the time. Oh, we just got to get him going. And literally nothing changes. Nothing. But Dan Campbell said, nah, F that. We actually need to get him going. 7 targets, 6 grabs, 119, and a touchdown. And I thought they were very purposeful in terms of trying to get Jameson Williams in a good spot to get him activated. I thought that was my major takeaway with Dan Campbell calling the plays.
Couldn't agree more with you here. That was my biggest takeaway as well. Number one, obviously this happens. You start to see it come out on Twitter. Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network reported that, hey, Dan Campbell's down there with the Waffle House menu with the play sheet, and he's got his glasses on. He's got his readers on, so something's up here. And
why does he look so much older too, by the way? Like, he's calling plays.
Know.
He looks like he's like a grandpa all of a sudden. Like, what happened here? Anyways,
he's a grizzled looking guy, and those glasses truly do look like Walgreen readers. I'm sure they're actually probably like designer
right.
like glasses or whatever.
Totally. Yeah.
But they look like, you just plucked them off the Walgreens on the way to the stadium and popped them on there. So he does look a little older for sure.
Right.
I go back and forth. I think I look much younger when I wear my glasses as opposed to what not. So, I just came from an eye doctor appointment this morning, actually, which is why I was running behind James. So apologies
perfect.
to you, but you're trying to figure my eyeballs out. It's important. Got to get the eyes on the film. Got to see. So got to look at the numbers. Got to look at the tape. We need the eyeballs.
Beautiful.
But anyways, so Dan Campbell, it comes out, he's clearly calling the plays. And my first thing is, hey, we've seen this story before, right? Remember Dan Campbell's first year on the job. That was when he took play calling duties from Anthony Lynn prior to the next season firing Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator, who was the original choice as Detroit Lions OC. And then him and Ben Johnson kind of collaborated on it at the end of that year. And then Johnson becomes the full-time OC the next year. And so again, this was always why them losing Ben Johnson, it's like, we'll see what John Morton ends up being. But to me, I'm not saying this to discredit Ben Johnson, who I think is good and has done a good job in Chicago, but this is a little bit more of Dan Campbell's offense and his ideas and his philosophies than I think people want to admit, because
you're so right.
Because he's a big brawling dude and he looks like a defensive coordinator. It doesn't look like one of these, Matt LaFleur, well-groomed hair, offensive play caller, Sean McVay, all that stuff. He looks a little bit different than those fellas. So I think people talk about biting kneecaps. People profile old Dan Campbell sometimes, but I think he's got great ideas. He's a former offensive player in the NFL as a tight end.
Correct.
So I think he has the ability to take this over in a pinch when they need it. And look, the Lions are a good team, but I do think they needed something on offense. And Dan Campbell basically described it as he thought that they needed a change up. He didn't say anything negative about John Morton. Who they flashed to John Morton in the booth every now and again. And that looked like a guy that had gotten a demotion. He just looked a little like, I'm uncomfortable here. It's just not quite the same. And Dan Campbell said, this stuck out to me in relation to the Jameson Williams thing. He said, I think I have a really good feel for our players. And I think that specifically with Jameson Williams, I don't think that John Morton ever had a really good feel for what to do with Jameson Williams, even though he and this whole team talked a big game about JMO in the offseason. Him having a breakout year. They always talk big about JMO in the offseason, but he's an interesting type of receiver in that, at least in my opinion, his speed, and we've talked about it over the years, is not expressed really well as a vertical, like, line up outside and win go routes against press man coverage. You want to get him rolling. You want to get him running with that speed after the catch. And there's really been no change from what I've seen in terms of the routes they're having him run this year. It's just where they get him the football and how they design plays for him. And I think this game in particular really showed that well, because Jameson Williams had these monstrous air yard per target games this year, 33, 26, 20, consistently massive. He's at about 10 air yards per target in this game, and he averages 9.8 yards after catch per reception, which is his highest mark of the season in a game that does not have one of these massive air yard numbers where he's getting a pass down the field and catching and running it. It was more, hey, let's get him on an in breaker, pin the ball on him, and let him run after the catch a little bit. Use that stop and start ability that I do think has been better for JMO over the course of his NFL career. So I think this was a good testament to Dan Campbell, having a good feel for some of these guys. It's easy to get Amon-Ra St. Brown the football. Like that's easy, in my opinion. With his role and everything, that's one thing. But your true, I think, merits as a play caller and an offensive designer is, how do we get Jameson Williams, who's more of a specific type of receiver, how do we get him activated? This is a good testament that I think Dan Campbell knows how to do that.
By the way, it should be noted as well that Amon-Ra St. Brown played about 78% of his snaps lined up as a slot receiver in this game against Washington. On the season, he's playing about 50-50. Outside, inside. And we have seen that usage under Ben Johnson as well, that 50-50 usage. But again, it's notable to me that Dan Campbell starts calling the plays, and he's like, you know what, man? Let's just get Amon-Ra St. Brown in a place where he can win. Let's get him inside. Let's go get Jameson Williams in a spot that he can win. We're going to, again, as you pointed out, reduce those air yards, get him going horizontally, using that speed horizontally, really stressing the defenses. Right, like, again, you think about zone defense, Matt. Jameson Williams streaking across the, intermediate middle of the field.
Baby.
You're just putting so much stress on this on zone defenses that way. Like, you got to match up now, but you've got to make those decisions so fast because Jameson Williams is using that speed horizontally, right? Like, now it's not so much about like, okay, let's just win one-on-one, because that's where when you get vertical using that speed, you got to win one-on-one. Now Jameson Williams taking on zone defenses where it's like, okay, now they've got a match cover. And that right there is so difficult to do at that high of a pace and to just win consistently in that way, especially with a guy like Jared Goff who loves to see a player going over the middle of the field. Shoot, man. You know what I mean? So I just felt like in those two ways, okay, they got Amon-Ra St. Brown kicked inside, played about 78% of his snaps as a slot. Jameson Williams streaking across the middle on these, like, drags and, crossers and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's just, to me, just sensible coaching. I mean, ask anyone who knows, the Detroit Lions, like, where are you going to line these guys up? What are you guys going to, that's what they should be doing. And they went away from that this year. And oh, by the way, you take a look at their losses too, Matt, right? Like, in week 1, they scored 13 points against Green Bay. Right, in week 6 against Kansas City, they score 17 points. Against Minnesota, they still scored 24, but again, it wasn't a great offensive showing, I don't think. Right, yeah. So in those losses, and that's really where Detroit is going right now, right? Like, they've got their eye on the prize. Like, they're thinking, okay, NFC Championship. They're thinking Super Bowl. They're thinking, let's go win this championship. We got to beat these teams. We got to win against great teams. Green Bay is going to be a playoff team, I think. Kansas City definitely going to be a playoff team. Well, I guess I think, actually. Now that, their win-loss record, I don't know. But Minnesota, right? Like, again, like, you've got to win these games. It's fine when you score 52 and win against Chicago. Who cares? Right? You score 37 against Cincinnati and win. Who cares, dude? You know what I'm saying? You've got to win these tough games, and in these tough games, the offense definitely sputtered. 13 against Green Bay, 17 against Kansas City. That's just not going to get it done.
Yeah, even the Ravens game, which I thought was a really good offensive performance, that was a very different version of the Ravens,
totally,
their defense in particular. So the Lions had 546 yards of offense in this game,
wow.
Which, to be fair, the Commanders are not one of these teams we're talking about in terms of, hey, this is big time competition. This is a team this is a team that stinks, and their season is long since over. Their defense is bad. They can't keep up with any of the stuff that this Lions offense, when it's at its best, can pitch at you. This is not that type of team. But right. Nevertheless, I do think a lot of the points about, hey, getting these guys going against zone coverage, that really is what's going to take this to the next level here. Jameson Williams in particular, just getting him in more of those in-breaking routes, as you mentioned, get him in Jared Goff's vision. Don't have him pushing it, outside the numbers. And I think there were too many. This was more on my radar after the first week, where I did not love what the Lions put on film in terms of how static the offense was and the lack of motion, the lack of play action. And I think the run game also has really struggled under John Morton this year as well. But this game in particular, their third most 11 personnel percentage this year, 63.2%. That was the other games was week one against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. That was their highest of the year. That was kind of like fugazi though, because they're trailing for most of the game. They're in negative game script. They're controlling the game throughout, and they're able to really get in that 11 personnel, spread the field a little bit more, allowed Amon-Ra St. Brown to kick into the slot, do what he does best, ditch some of the multi-tight ends. They only were in 12 personnel, 16% here, which was a season low, actually, in terms of their 12 personnel usage. It was much more two backs, two tight ends, some 13 personnel, which is some jumbo as well, where Dan Skipper's on the field as that extra offensive lineman. That's going to help the run game as well, especially as they're dealing with some injuries on the interior. And Penei Sewell has also been a little banged up as well. So I really like what Dan Campbell threw out here. Let's obviously see it against a good team. But for Jameson Williams in particular, I do think I come out of this game feeling like that was really encouraging to see from the young receiver, fresh off a contract extension. Let's see what else they can do. I think getting their two most explosive players, look, St. Brown is fantastic, obviously, at what he does, but their two most explosive players are Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams. And when those guys are firing off big plays in concert, which they were yesterday against the Commanders, that's when they become an offense that's really, really difficult to stop. So I'm excited to see Dan Campbell as the play caller of this team. And what a cool thing for Lions fans to have a head coach in Dan Campbell, who is obviously an elite culture guy and someone that I remember a conversation I had with David Montgomery where he talked about, hey, what makes Dan Campbell special? It's he does not allow any culture vultures, was the phrase that he said to me, where it's these guys who come in and just I think of energy vampires, just sucking the life, sucking the energy out of the room. He doesn't allow any of those players in here. You're either with us or you're out. And that's what he is. I think he's special as a culture creator and a program builder. And by the way, he can also then just kick into I'm Sean McVay. I'm a great play caller. That's pretty special stuff. Dude, as a head coach.
100%, man, 100%. And again, I look at the target distribution too. 7 targets for JMO, 8 targets for Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got 5 targets for Sam Laporta. Those are your top 3 target getters. I mean, again, sensible usage in terms of when you take a look at, who are your most talented pass catchers. It's those guys, man. By the way, shout out Sam Laporta, dude. Like he's catching everything right now. He's got an 82% catch rate, and he's averaging 12.2 yards per reception. Bro, that is so impressive for a tight end. That is really, really good stuff here. And again, they got him activated in this game too. 5 targets, 5 grabs, 53 yards. Come on, bro. Like that is good stuff.
I also think he's had a great year as a blocker too. I think his best work as a blocker in the NFL so far has been this year for Sam Laporta. So
there you go.
Look, this is a team full of guys who should all be hitting their prime years. Yeah. Look, it's never great to lose a coach like Ben Johnson and some of the other folks who left the staff in the offseason. Antoine Randall, Tanner Angstrand. I think all these guys have had moments in their new jobs. Yeah. But as long as Dan Campbell can continue to be your sun and moon and have these play and have everybody orbit around him, I think that, hey, even if you bring in John Morton and for half a season he's your play caller, it doesn't really work out. I think you can get a lot out of it. It's a great move. And Morton was a guy who wasn't in the building last year when Jameson Williams had his breakout season. And I think it's, like I said, JMO is and all receivers of this archetype, they're a little more sensitive. I think of Xavier Worthy as like this as well. They're these speed guys who are not necessarily above average man coverage beaters. And they're always going to probably have to be perimeter players because they play alongside, both these guys play alongside primary big slot types, Rashee Rice in Kansas City, Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit. You're just going to be a little more sensitive to chaos when the offense goes through some of these ebbs and flows. And then also you do have to have, I think, the right play caller and the right offensive mind to push those buttons for these guys, because it's just so easy to say, hey man, that guy runs fast, put him on the outside, we're going to take deep shots to him. Totally. And that's just not always efficient with every quarterback in the league, especially Jared Goff. That's going to kind of, I think Jared Goff has a hose. He's got a whip. He can throw it, but it's got to be the right situation for him to throw that deep ball. Yeah. And I think when you can get Jameson Williams running the stem, snapping it off and breaking it inside because of his stop-start ability, that's when you see his best route running. That was where he was great in reception perception last year. And again, Morton wasn't there in the building last year for when this happened. And I think that Jameson is the guy. He's maybe been a little bit of the canary in the coal mine, that there was something wrong with the Morton offense all along. This weird Jameson Williams season that we're having, because I don't watch him and see anything different about him as a player. I think we can argue about where he fits in the hierarchy of the league in terms of ranking receivers, but dude, he's good. He's good. We know he's good. Like, we know he doesn't secretly stink. He's a player that you have to deploy in the right fashion. And again, it looks like Dan Campbell knows how to do that. So that's good.